Hello and welcome to LaBella's Looks. Today we're going to talk about pretty much every sport going on right now and a little bit of the ones that aren't. First topic on my mind today, what is going on with the NFL Pro Bowl? Shedeur Sanders elected to the Pro Bowl this week as an alternate. Drake May sitting out the Pro Bowl, heading to the Super Bowl. That's a topic we're going to discuss a little bit next week. But Shedeur Sanders, what does this say about the state of the NFL? What do you think of it as a fan? How are you going to handle the Pro Bowl? You're going to view it with guys like him playing as an alternate. The position of alternates in the Pro Bowl has become a little bit of a stretch now that anyone who is playing the Pro Bowl, obviously anyone who's injured, anyone who opts out of the Pro Bowl is replaced by an alternate. What does that do to the players' accolades throughout their entire career history? It changes a lot when you look at NFL players, when you're talking about them 20 years down the line, 50 years down the line at your middle school lunch table. So there's a couple things, I don't want to say wrong with this, but generally there is a problem with this type of work that the NFL is putting in, electing guys like Shedeur Sanders. And I'm not even trying to be a hater in the sense of talking about this topic, but Shedeur Sanders, who had 7 starts this year, went with a 3-4 record, a QB rating of under 19. That's the worst among starting quarterbacks that played this season. He had obviously a shared split with Dillon Gabriel. Even Joe Flacco had some time in Cleveland this year before he went on to Cincinnati. So there was a decent split in the quarterback room between the two rookies especially. And even Dillon Gabriel arguably outperformed him stats-wise, though Shedeur Sanders had some pretty good games like that one against Indiana in which he led them to the victory. So in the status of the Pro Bowl in the modern day, obviously viewership has been declining in recency. Now you're not working with a tackle football game anymore. You're working with a flag football discussion in general. So that is the main highlight of the game as of 2023. Viewership has been on the downtick, and you're trying to work in other events other than the flag football game, such as the pushing of the weights with players on top of them, mini games like that to kind of get the fans going a little bit. Outside of the Pro Bowl, you do these ancillary events to keep the crowd moving a little bit. And you can only do so much with that with viewership. And I think the NFL is at least a sport where there's so much dynamic opportunities you have with your sport, as opposed to the NBA, where you're going to do the dunk contest, you're going to do the 3-point contest. You can only do so much in terms of skills challenge and everything else. But football, you can obviously take your kickers out and do a field goal kicking contest, tic-tac-toe. They've gotten so dynamic with that over the years. But as I'm saying, in the modern era, they've had such a fall off with the Pro Bowl, and it's a problem across sports. I think most of these sports, but especially the NFL and NBA, have just been shooting themselves in the foot trying to discover their path to really keeping people involved in the Pro Bowl in general. But I want to just harp on the Shedeur Sanders topic a little bit. So first of all, another QB that comes to my mind that was never actually a Pro Bowler throughout his entire career, currently still an NFL player. I already mentioned the name Joe Flacco since he had his time with Cleveland and Cincinnati this year. Joe Flacco, through his entire about 20-year career, was never a Pro Bowler, still has not become a Pro Bowler. Even he was an option that could have been a Pro Bowler in the AFC over Shedeur Sanders this year. But he, in his long career, 2012 Super Bowl winner, and for all the maybe young Ravens fans or young NFL fans out there, yes, that did happen once upon a time. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl a little over a decade ago, but he was never a Pro Bowler. There were reports in 2015 that he turned down the Pro Bowl opportunity to not come in as an alternate. He'd rather watch the Pro Bowl from home as a member of his family, just hang out with his kids and watch the Pro Bowl instead, which I respect the decision. Not that I don't respect the decision by Shedeur Sanders, because let's be honest, if you're an NFL player and you get the opportunity to be a Pro Bowler, I mean, I would seize that opportunity every time. So no knock on him for doing so. But Joe Flacco is a player that I'm thinking of. So many guys like that. You look at their history and you're like, wow, he was never a Pro Bowler. But now you're going to look at Shedeur Sanders into the future and say, wow, Shedeur Sanders was at least a one-time Pro Bowler, and that was in his rookie season. So, I mean, not really up there in the Offensive Player of the Year rankings, because there are obviously multiple offensive players that were just sensational this year, especially Emeka Egbuka in the first half of the season. But now Shedeur Sanders with his first Pro Bowl appearance. Really, the AFC quarterback room for the Pro Bowl is not the most impressive. Josh Allen was supposed to head that, but now he's walking around in crutches today at Joe Kelly's induction for the head coach of the Buffalo Bills position. But the head coaching is something we'll get into a little bit later. But some guys that could have went in over Shedeur Sanders for the AFC quarterback positions, such as Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence even, who had his best season of his career so far and made it to the playoffs. CJ Stroud even knocked out in the wild card, and everybody's making that into kind of a meme this week, his performance in that wild card game. But if you look at it really, just the journey that he took the Texans on the season, they had a bit of a rough start, but they still made it to the wild card. Yes, it was an impressive defensive showing from that team. They're one of the best defenses in the entire league, if not really the top 2, top 1. But obviously that defense wasn't enough to hold up in that wild card game against the Patriots because they also had a really good defense and clearly are now that they're heading into the Super Bowl, just a sensational defense. But CJ Stroud also had a pretty decent season. Obviously, it's not as prolific as his rookie year, where everybody thought he was, wow, maybe he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. But things really haven't fallen off to such an insane degree that we should be harping on him not being a good quarterback. The memes have gotten a little bit out of hand in that sense. But like I said, those guys that could have been over him were probably a more reasonable decision. But this brings me to my next topic of why we're having this issue. So say you're saying that Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence all opted out of the Pro Bowl and didn't want to be credited, did not want to show up and play at this Pro Bowl in the flag football game. Maybe they find this to be a useless week if they're, even though they're not in the playoffs anymore, not heading to the Super Bowl, they say it's not worth my time. I'm heading into vacation with my family. I'd rather just get my work and do whatever. Now how do you get in players? How do you incentivize them to become Pro Bowlers and actually want to participate in this week? Because now you have a week where you're saying this is an all-star game. This is where you want fans to stay involved during the week that we're not having our Super Bowl, and you want to hype up the Super Bowl even more with some football action during this time. This is really the only sport where this is happening right before their championship week. That doesn't happen in the MLB. It doesn't happen in the NBA. It's all or during the middle of the season. So you're keeping something involved during that break in the season. You're having high quality play. So the Pro Bowl, which is not really high quality play, now it's a flag football game. I can't push that narrative enough. But now you're saying, okay, we're going to allow these quarterbacks and all of these players in general to not have a care for this week. Obviously, you can't push Joe Burrow and say, you know, you have to participate in the Pro Bowl this week. You're not really going to put it in the CBA. You know, it's an obligation in your contract. You have to play in the Pro Bowl on this Pro Bowl Sunday every year. But how are you going to keep this from happening where all these quarterbacks are like, wow, this really isn't worth my time? You got to incentivize it with maybe a high quality game, maybe give them some more incentive involved in this game. Maybe if there's financial benefits, which I believe there already are, but you got to get more going here, not just for viewership, but also to seize that opportunity and make these players play, because then you're not falling down the ladder where you're going down each player in the AFC trying to find somebody that will stick, unless you would have had to go even further down into the backups and trying to find somebody to participate. So as I mentioned the viewership before, you had a little bit over 6 million a couple years ago, and now you've dwindled down to under 5 million. There was an 18% decrease last year in viewership in the Pro Bowl. Over 1 million dropped off. So in 2023, which was the first year with tackle football being gone, it was a flag football year for the NFL, which has been the last couple of years. I think some people were saying, all right, let's give this one more chance. Let's see what this Pro Bowl actually can consist of, even though we're doing flag football as opposed to the tackle football where no one really wanted to make contact. And now, since they've seen this flag football for 3 years now, they said, you know what, we're starting to fizzle out of this, and this isn't really the type of stuff that we want to be watching anymore. So that's why the Pro Bowl has kind of come down to an end. But speaking on the All-Star game in general now across other sports, which I mentioned briefly, the NBA having a similar issue. You talk about the NBA now, and the All-Star game they've been reformatting that for a couple of years now. And this year they're going to turn into a USA versus World type of format, where it's not going to be one drafted team against another drafted team, such as LeBron James versus Giannis or something like that. You had a couple different captains over the year, which was exciting. I mean, I was one that was actually interested in watching the draft show with somebody like LeBron James showcasing a team and everybody getting drafted and making a whole big show out of it. It was awesome. And the TNT crew has always done a great job with All-Star Weekend, putting that all together. Now it's not so much TNT. It's not so much Kenny Charles and all the guys taking care of it this year. The Rising Stars draft was taken care of by Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. It's a whole different realm now, and it's just a different style. You keep feeding NBA fans new things every year with their viewership, and the media has really changed over time, especially social media. I'm not going to say explicitly, but especially social media has been viewing things a lot differently in terms of the All-Star games of these sports in the last couple of years, because you're trying to take out these veterans to do these draft shows and everything's going downhill. The whole TNT situation over the last couple of years has been a bit of a spiraling, but they should be back. But anyway, as I was trying to say there, the NBA All-Star game, now that you're going to do it USA versus World, first of all, I'm trying to figure out myself what the implications are with the USA versus World game, because you have obviously a longer roster of the USA team as opposed to the World team going on. You have they broke down the All-Star rosters as they typically would, with a certain amount of players from the West, a certain amount of players from the East. They pretty much went positionless with it. It's not so much backcourt, frontcourt, a little bit from each anymore. Still stuck to the integrity of fan voting for the most part. But now they're in the situation of, from the rosters that they built based on fan voting, regardless of position, there's more USA players than World players. I mean, that's kind of a guarantee. I mean, though World players or European foreign players are kind of taking over the NBA in general nowadays, you still had more strength in the roster for the All-Star game in terms of the USA side. So I don't know how they're really going to handle the rosters there and what they're going to do, who they're going to pull out for more foreign players. Maybe it'll just be a couple foreign guys who aren't really big names, unless they bring on more um, just stars for the foreign team afterward as alternates there. I mean, you also have a lot of injuries going on right now, so alternates are probably going to be a huge discussion in the NBA All Star game in general. I mean, I was looking at the snubs per se journey that they were talking about a couple days ago all over ESPN. I mean, the All Star rosters look decent, but you have guys like Giannis, Ja Morant, Nikola Jokic all out right now, all out for multiple weeks as well. So there's not much you can really do in terms of keeping star power in this game. And Giannis was obviously going to be a headliner for the world team facing off against the USA. So that at least you have guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Canada being the top of the cornerstone of the world roster. But how much more can you put into this All Star game with injuries like that looming? And you can only have your guys healthy for so long in terms of heading into this All Star game. But like I said, those injuries have really been tolling the NBA in recent weeks, and I don't know how they're going to handle that All Star game, but that's kind of my closing words on the NBA All Star game. Really, the All Star game status in general right now. I think the MLB, though we're in the MLB off season right now, it's great to see that the MLB All Star game has really been thriving in recent years. That's one that's kind of hard to manipulate in a sense that it won't be entertaining anymore because those guys are still swinging as hard as they can. Generally, they're fielding as passionately as they'd like to. I mean, maybe they're not sprinting to the outfield to the wall as much as you possibly can. But defensively and offensively, I think the MLB All-Star game keeps it up, and it's great how they also handle the rotations of innings per pitchers and everything like that. You get starters in the seventh inning. You really keep switching things up. I like the way that they elect the coaches for the All-Star game. I think it's great, and it's fresh how they keep keeping it simple. Although you had the American League blow out the National League for almost a decade in a row. I mean, that was an entertaining streak to watch, but it wasn't like, wow, this is domination. I can't watch this anymore because the American League is too overpowered. And that's what happened with the NBA All-Star game, why things had to start switching up, because it was like, wow, the West is so dominant over the East, but that's a different just aspect of the All-Star game. The NBA is obviously so different where it's like, wow, if this group of players is so much better, it's impossible here. But across the MLB, I think it's been fair play and it's been fun to watch. As an MLB enjoyer myself, I would say the All-Star game is in a good position, and they do a lot of great stuff with the ancillary events as well. I mean, the home run derby, I can speak on it as though I liked the outs segment a little bit more as opposed to the timed tournament style run that they've been doing the last couple of years. But I think they're trying to move more in that positive direction that they had a while back now. So really, in general, the MLB All-Star weekend is in a really good spot. The home run derby is great. One thing I will say, though, is the jersey aspect of it. I mean, you talk about the players wearing their own jerseys or players wearing the All-Star jerseys specifically for the home run derby. Could go either way. I mean, I know fans are decently split on that, but a lot of fans really like people wearing their own jerseys for All-Star weekend entirely. I think it's pretty cool when they wear the American League or National League jerseys. I know it's also beneficial for the league when they show their players wearing the All-Star jerseys so much to showcase that merchandise and really push it out, and that makes fans want to watch it. That's a whole big thing with City Connect jerseys as well. I mean, you want to push out as many jerseys as possible, keep the fans moving a little bit. But I mean, talking about the revenue of the sport is a different story in general. But I mean, I don't know. I like the aspect of All-Star jerseys, and I really like the way that they keep pushing them during All-Star weekend. Keep the jerseys coming. Keep them coming for city jerseys across the NBA as well. Just keep doing it. I mean, I think it's a great aspect of what these sports teams do. But I mean, checking out, we just talked about the NBA and the injury status of it, but I'll just peep at the standings real quick, check out what the current status across the league is. I mean, the Detroit Pistons, who if you had the Detroit Pistons being the one seed in the Eastern Conference or being the best team in the league, essentially behind the OKC Thunder for this long into the season, we're about to be in February and the Pistons are the top seed in the East. I can't say that you would have expected that. I mean, if you, like I said, if you had that prediction early, I wouldn't believe you for a second. But the Knicks holding the 2 seed and the Celtics right behind them with the 3 seed. So I would actually say that the NBA, despite the injuries and everything else that I've commented on negatively, this is a very competitive NBA season, and it's a very unexpected competitively NBA season. I love everything about it, especially the Eastern Conference right now. You wouldn't have thought the Celtics would be this high. Everybody said Jason Tatum's out. The Celtics are on a little bit of a downtick right now with Joe Mazzulla's offense kind of stuttering. Peyton Pritchard wasn't going to move into the starting lineup despite Tatum being out. And everybody was like, wow, this Boston team is probably not even a playoff team. And I admittedly was against that statement early in the season, not to hype up my point here, but I was like, the Celtics are still the Boston Celtics. This is a great defense despite Drew Holiday leaving a couple years ago. This is a great offense in general without Jason Tatum being there. There's power off the bench. There's so much power in the starting lineup still. And they're a 3 seed right now. Same amount of losses as the Knicks. It's just an incredible ride for Joe Mazzulla's team. And that arguably points to Joe Mazzulla, being a pretty good head coach. But the Knicks staying above them. The Knicks were on a pretty big skid, and now they're on a 4-game win streak. It's great what they've been doing this season. Obviously, anyone in New York knows that the Knicks have been at the peak of their game for the last season and a half, 2 seasons, and it's been great to watch. Now Mike Brown at the helm of it. Nobody knew what really was going to turn around after Thibs left the team, but I think it's been an impressive showing, and they're doing great, especially at the Garden, 18-6 at home. I mean, that's one of the best arenas across professional sports in general. So it's great to see that they've been keeping things up at a high point. And then me personally, I'm big on the Orlando Magic, and they're sitting in the 7th seed, trying to avoid play-in territory. About 500 on their standings right now. They won last night, but there's only so much you can do. That's another team where injuries come and go. Paolo and Franz have been injured both at the same time and on and off. It's kind of like the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum duo, where you love them both on the court at the same time, but oftentimes things kind of get a little bit out of control. And that's a great rotational duo you can have as well, where one guy's always on the court at least. Ideally, if you have the whole team healthy. Problem with the Orlando Magic for the last couple of years is that shooting is just not even part of their concept of offensive play. They've been the worst shooting team in the NBA for the last couple of years, and that makes me personally miss guys like Nikola Vucevic, who actually used to stretch the floor a little bit and be great on both sides of the ball. But now you have Goga Bitadze, Wendell Carter Jr., who are just not really like that in any sense. Maybe they're better on the defensive side. Vucevic has taken a lot of criticism defensively for the last couple of seasons, but I think he's been great for the Chicago Bulls, even though they're trying to move him potentially. The NBA trade deadline has been another fiery topic in general with the guys. Some of the names that have been on the table to be moved, but I'll get into that in just a couple minutes. I just want to keep looking through the Eastern Conference and really quick, because I mean, you also have the Raptors, Cavs, 76ers ahead of the Mavericks as the 4, 5, 6. And 76ers are another interesting topic this year because Joel Embiid in fantasy basketball rankings was so unbearably low that I thought if you're not looking at him in that, like if you're going 5 rounds in and Joel Embiid is still on the board, you have the steal of the season down there. But clearly ESPN found him to be an appropriate spot because Joel Embiid has had his ups and downs. He's had some really impactful nights, but for the most part, especially his first half of the season, he was really nowhere to be found. And the 76ers are another like injury-ridden team where you're always going to find someone down. Joel Embiid has had some pretty rough missed games throughout his career. But the 76ers, a young, youthful team where I was like, wow, they got Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jared McCain sitting down there somewhere. This is going to be a great team. And they've kind of just slowed down in general. So they had a great start to the season as well. But Jared McCain is now in the G League. He had a prolific Rookie of the Year potential season before his injury, which was pretty bad. He was out for quite a while. And now he's back, and they're not utilizing so much. Maybe they're not liking what they're seeing from him in practice. They like the rest of the youth that they have out there alongside Paul George and Joel Embiid, and they're not testing him enough. He doesn't get really high minutes, and now they put him down to the G League, try to reset him a little bit. So that one kind of hurts to see. As a Jared McCain fan myself, I love what he was doing at Duke, and it was great seeing his journey to the NBA. I'm sure a lot of people saw it all over social media. It's kind of a shame to see the status of his play right now, but I really hope for future that he is back up and getting to that stage that he was at just about a year ago. Now the Heat as well. I mean, you're out of Jimmy Butler for a couple of years. So since Jimmy Butler left, the Heat really haven't been the same. Obviously, they went to the championship in the bubble and lost to the Lakers. So that was probably the peak Heat in terms of the last 7 years. Really the peak Heat since the LeBron era in Miami. And since then, Tyler Hero was out the first half of this season, or the first half of this first half of the season, I should say. So now he's back, and there's only so much he can do to boost this Bam Adebayo run team. Jaime Jaquez hasn't really been that same factor that he was since his rookie year. Another player that was so hyped up coming out of when he came into the league, and he was just so prolific, and he was doing pretty much everything. A UCLA guy, I believe. That was another amazing college basketball team, side note. But, I mean, I will say this, because now I'm looking at the 9-seed Hawks. This is a team that I actually really do like because I've been the highest on CJ McCollum since he was a Blazer. And I really like the youthful aspect of this team that is now run by a veteran, CJ McCollum, despite Trae Young leaving. And I'm not sure what the Wizards are building down there last in the Eastern Conference. But, I mean, good luck to Trae Young in Washington. He had a desire to go to the Wizards, so good luck for him and there, whatever they're trying to push ahead. The Hawks actually have a chance at becoming something. Jalen Johnson's actually been leading this team quite well, and they're on a 4-game win streak right now. But, I mean, this guy, he's a young star really in the making, and he's got all-star potential written all over him, just like Denny Avdia, who, I mean, I just spoke about his team as well. He's got so much potential. This is the best year of his career as well. He's had a couple of stints across multiple teams, but I think he's just going to be a star very soon. He had all-star potential this year, and he was not named to be so. So potential reserve Denny Avdia to come across NBA. If you don't know the name, you're going to know it very soon. But I have to mention the other New York teams since we're broadcasting this from New York. The Brooklyn Nets, the 13th seed in the East. Brooklyn Nets haven't been hot in multiple years. I mean, they've tried everything. And I mean, just because this is my first show of the semester, I'll take back the journey of the Nets and talk about the KD Kyrie era. I mean, Harden was there as well. They've tried a bunch of different things. Obviously, the Nets have had multiple big threes. You tried Kevin Garnett and that whole era in Brooklyn towards the end of his career. I feel like Brooklyn kind of scrambles a lot of in the sense of trying to pull in these big names, and then they get left with seasons like these last couple of seasons. I mean, 12 wins, 33 losses, team led by Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. Yes, Cam Thomas did miss a quarter of the season thus far. Michael Porter Jr. is really having a sensational year, though. I will admit, I didn't think Michael Porter Jr. was going to fly as much as he is right now in Brooklyn. He was great on the Nuggets, but he was obviously like a third option there with Jokic, Murray, and then a little bit of Aaron Gordon there in his last couple of years. But he's just been great for the Nets. I mean, he's high, also averaging ridiculous assist numbers and rebound numbers in addition to his about, I think, 27 points per game, something like that. So, I mean, it's been a meme for the last couple of years that Michael Porter Jr. is never looking to pass the rock, but clearly the rock is being slid when he needs to slide it. And he's also alongside Cam Thomas, who in a very similar sense is always looking shot first at his offense. So another staff and team where there's not many ways to go with it, but I think that the Nets have done well with what they have been using. And I think they're also firing up a little bit of young talent there, and Day'Ron Sharpe as well behind Nicholas Claxton. I think there's a lot of potential in their front court, especially as trade pieces. I think Sharpe can also be moved if you want to really reset, move Claxton. It's a great opportunity there. I wish Claxton had a little bit more shooting ability. I mean, he's not a very prolific outside shooter. I think that would really help them stretch the floor a lot. But I know I just said I love the East, but the status of the West as well. That's really where a lot of my more desirable teams are residing right now. Obviously, OKC runs the West, 38 wins, 10 losses. And I will say they've slowed down a little bit. They lost multiple times to the Spurs. They finally got the best of the Spurs, I think last week or the week before when they were 0-3 to San Antonio. They were handing them really all their losses. And now they're having a little bit of a skid the last couple of weeks where taking on those losses have grown on them a little bit. They're still 21-4 at home. So putting up a little bit ridiculous numbers there. But the Spurs are right behind them, and that Victor Wembanyama-led squad has been impressive. Since Wembanyama touched San Antonio, things have really changed. Admittedly, I don't think I've seen an impact by a number one overall pick as dominant as Victor Wembanyama's run for the Spurs has been in his last couple of seasons. This team has fully turned around into a top 3 seed, at least top 3 seed potential every season, and this is actually a championship caliber team. Now, your backcourt is led by Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox. 2 youthful guys. Fox has been in the league for a little bit now, a lot of riding there with the Kings. And he was actually taking them to deep runs in the playoffs where they just kept running into Golden State and some other big teams where they were getting shut down. Fox led that team to a lot of good runs. And I think this is a good backcourt in San Antonio. Now, they also have guys like Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell who, if they're sitting on the bench, that's a great option to turn to. And Keldon Johnson's had some huge games the last couple of weeks. But I think all around the Spurs are a great team, especially on the defensive side with Wembanyama holding it down. But if you have a guaranteed double-double, even most of the time triple-double guy coming out of Wembanyama, you're going to have some great nights. And that brings me to my next topic, the number 3 seed, the Denver Nuggets. Same scenario. Nikola Jokic is going to give you a triple-double probably 75% of the games. I don't know his exact stats, but he's probably averaging one, if not 9 assists maybe. But 31 wins, 16 losses. Nikola Jokic has been out for about a week and a half now, 2 weeks maybe. And he's got a little bit more time to go. So I also don't know if he's going to be ready for All-Star Weekend. That would be another big name on the foreign squad. So that just brings me further down of I don't know how exactly this All-Star format's going to work with the foreigners not having so much guys as opposed to Team USA. But the Nuggets, they can only do so much without Nikola Jokic. But, I mean, that's still a pretty powerful squad with Jamal Murray at the helm, Aaron Gordon there as well. The Nuggets have a lot of potential. Christian Braun has also stepped up at the 2 guard. They don't have KCP anymore. But things are still looking pretty good for the offense. They're out there in Denver. No more Mike Malone. But they've still made things happen without him. And Mike Malone's doing well in the media world now, side note. So the Houston Rockets in the 4 seed, the Lakers in the 5, Timberwolves in the 6. Those are 3 great teams, all on a very similar level. The Lakers are obviously ups and downs. You can look at them a great night where Austin Reeves will go for 30. LeBron will have 10 assists, 10 rebounds, and 20 points. And then Luka Doncic obviously can explode just about any night and will probably give you 25 solid at least every night. So that's a great triple threat right there. And that whole Lakers roster is pretty solid. Obviously, I don't think they've quite gotten the five that they're looking for. DeAndre Ayton has had a decent season, but DeAndre Ayton, I don't think will really ever be that guy that they want him to be. Number one pick to the Suns, and I don't think it's really panned out as good as his career probably could have been. I mean, it took the Suns. I wouldn't say took the Suns, but was alongside a Suns team that went to the championship and got taken down by the Bucks a couple of years ago. So I mean, he's had a decent career, but he's not really panning out to be a number one pick type of star. So the Lakers that's really the only place they can improve is in the five spot. I mean, if Luka Doncic, he's classified as a point guard, so I wouldn't say they really need better guard play than Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. But maybe at the five they can improve a little bit more. And the status of LeBron James, we don't know in terms of future in the NBA. And I was saying this to somebody the other day. I think LeBron James is the type of guy that would kind of give a fair warning on this is going to be my last season. I mean, it's been a long ride and everybody has been teased by it for the last couple of seasons where he says, you know what, this is going to be it for me. This is going to be it for me. He's done some teaser posts where he's like, I have a big announcement. And then it's just a sponsorship of some sort. I think he's going to make the announcement prior to the season happening that this is going to be his final run. So I'm imagining that this is not the end for him. Though if he goes out and he wins a championship, that could be a fair place to end his career. It could be spontaneous. That's the same boat I'm in with Matthew Stafford right now on the Rams. I saw the reports come out where Sean McVay was asked in the press conferences last week after the NFC Championship game, which was a phenomenal game. Sean McVay was asked, is Stafford returning this year? And Sean McVay was almost offended. Like, obviously he's going to return if he wants to still play football. Because I don't know why you wouldn't want Matthew Stafford. He's the MVP probably this season, and he's at the highest caliber of his game that could possibly be. I mean, obviously he had a great career in Detroit, but also he's having a sensational year with LA where he could possibly go into the Hall of Fame as a Ram. And I thought that was going to be a great possibility if he won the championship this year. That was my pick to win the championship. But I don't know. Sean McVay was like, yeah, obviously he's going to return if he wants to still play football. And I think Matthew Stafford's the same type of guy where I would hope, at least, because I love Matthew Stafford, that he would declare it being his last season prior to the season starting. But if he had won that championship, I think that definitely would have been the end of his career. But I don't know if he wants to end like that. Though he might win the MVP right now, and that might be all. Hopefully, nobody lets Drake May's Super Bowl run get into their factors because it's a regular season award and pick Drake May because I personally have Matthew Stafford as my MVP for it. But just because of the higher yards in general by a decent margin, higher touchdowns. I think he had like 12 more touchdowns than the following QB in the rankings. Drake May had a generational completion percentage of about 70%. I'll give that to him. But Matthew Stafford would be my vote for the MVP. Now, quick back to the NBA here. Warriors at the 8th seed. Warriors are one of my favorite teams. I've been a Steph Curry guy for the longest time. Admittedly a Glazer. But Steph Curry has had some injury scares, and Jimmy Butler now out with the ACL tear. What are you going to do as the Warriors this season? They're sitting a little bit over 500, and the away schedule has always been pretty rough for them. They're 17-7 at home, but that's never been where their problem has lied. I think in San Francisco, they've always kind of taken care of business. And now this roster, I've seen some of the lineups they've put out in this last week since Curry and Draymond got a rest day the other day. When Guy Santos, Quentin Post, Brandon Pajemski are all in the starting lineup, and then you can maybe throw Moses Moody in there. Things have not been so pretty for Golden State in the last week, and the fall off is certainly happening, and it's going to keep pulling them down in the standings. They're in the 8th seed right now, but play-in territory is coming very soon for Golden State, and I hope most Golden State fans have come to that conclusion. Brandon Pajemski has been a topic that they're trying to go at his throats in the last couple of months. Nobody's really liking his play so much, which is a shame because last season I feel like everybody loved Brandon Pajemski. They loved this redheaded guy who was coming out and being the other splash brother to replace Jordan Poole or replace Klay Thompson as the other guy Curry could turn to, who we all thought the other splash brother was going to be Buddy Hield, who is not part of the starting five these days when everybody else is out for some reason. I don't know if Buddy Hield was out this last week or Steve Kerr just does not like to give the guy minutes, doesn't like what he sees from him in practice. I really thought when Buddy Hield joined Golden State that he was going to be a much bigger factor than he has been, but that's just a bit of a shame. But Steve Kerr has his ways. He's been a championship coach his entire career, essentially. So, I mean, he can keep doing what he's doing and maybe it'll pay off. And you got the Pelicans, Kings, and Jazz. I won't even talk about all the play-in teams, but those guys are at the bottom of the Western Conference. The Jazz, another pretty youthful team. Lauri Markkanen was on the chopping block for the last couple seasons. A potential move for Golden State, but he has not moved at all. And he can only do so much to lead that team to the promised land when they're all so young and Colin Sexton is come and gone. Keontae George at the top of that roster. So you have scoring options that are pretty youthful, but not a lot of veteran presence on that team that's going to take them far. A team that had Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Gordon Hayward, so much potential about a decade ago, and then it all kind of fell apart. They traded all those away, and the picks have panned out for some decent young guys, but the future isn't going to come for a couple of years. So I think the Jazz are kind of going to be a non-playoff team for a decent bit more for the next couple of years. Now, it is 1:30, so I do want to make kind of a pop culture breather here, as Harry Styles tickets have been kind of the topic of discussion for pop culture this week. And I myself have been a candidate trying to get into the pre-sales for the Harry Styles concert. So he's been up there in the charts for quite a while now, obviously a former One Direction member, but he is doing his 30-day or 30-night residency at Madison Square Garden, where he's going to take on the Garden and try to pretty much, I mean, this is record breaking what he's doing here. Billy Joel is obviously the man of the Garden, the piano man himself, who's my favorite artist of all time. I've seen him enough there, but you have Harry Styles coming on to take over essentially. And this is going to be generation of what he's doing. And as somebody who's already tried to get in some of the pre-sales, it's been pretty much insane what has been going on. I'm literally going to hop in right now because why the heck not? I'm registered for it. But I will say it's been pretty crazy, the tickets that he's been putting up. I mean, you jump into an artist who has been so prolific for his entire career. Now, this might be his final tour. He might be putting out his final album this year. But you take a look at it and you think tickets probably won't be insanely expensive because he's doing 30 nights. And yes, it is Madison Square Garden, I will admit. But you're like, this can't be so insane that there's going to be no shot at getting tickets for it. But yes, it has been just about that crazy. I hopped in for one this morning and I was about 4,000th in line, jumped into it, and the lowest tickets there were $450. So that is the status of the pre-sale game in today's world. That's pretty much how it goes. So I don't know. That's what you get when you jump into an artist like Harry Styles, who's been so big for so long. Obviously, everybody would like One Direction to get back together despite being a member down. But that is the status of the world that we live in, where tickets in the modern day are never really going to go below this point that they're at right now. Because, there's a threshold where everybody's going to buy it at, so why go lower? And that's pretty much what his marketing team probably decided to go with, despite having 30 days in the Garden. So we'll see. I don't know what the curfew game is with the Garden, how late he's going to go with these concerts, but I just joined the waiting room. So we'll see what happens at 2:00 for today's second pre-sale that I'm going to try attempting at. But that's pretty much all the discussion for the NBA, or really the main importance going on with them right now. I mean, other than All-Star Weekend happening and the playoffs coming up way down the line, so there's not really a future to discuss. But other than that, I really hope the reserves come in nicely for the NBA. There's obviously a lot of potential guys like Scotty Barnes. I mean, I'm glad Jaylen Brown actually got his first All-Star start for the NBA, because that's been a player who's been growing and growing alongside Jason Tatum. And without Jason Tatum, he is fully taken off. There's been, again, another guy that the internet loves to clown and meme, but just generational talent that we're letting slide aside. And he's been having a great career in Boston. And that might be the type of player who doesn't leave Boston and just loves to let his career ride out there. And I would totally respect that, because I think Boston has a great thing going, and it has had a great thing going for multiple decades now. So that's just a team that doesn't ever seem like it's going to slide. So I mentioned Steve Kerr, and when I was talking about the Warriors, and I was having this discussion with somebody a couple of days ago about whether Steve Kerr is a good coach. Here's what I'll say about coaching in general across sports, especially as a head coach. It's kind of hard to judge as the media, as a fan of the sport, how good a coach is, especially in basketball, because obviously you have the guy who's probably drawing up plays. You imagine teams are running sets in practice. So every time you see a game winner, you imagine it was the head coach drawing that type of play together. Now, Steve Kerr, multiple championships under his belt as the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, generational run from about 2014. You could even call it until 2022 when they won that championship, though they had a couple of down years in between. That's 4 championships just in that period right there. How much was Steve Kerr contributing to it? How much was Stephen Curry rolling that ball? Obviously, guys like Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, they had some big names come through and out, DeMarcus Cousins as well. But, I mean, you need to have somebody at the helm of that to really control that roster, unless your star player is like LeBron James and trying to draw up the plays himself and be at the helm of that. I don't necessarily see that Steph Curry was trying to lead in that sense, or Kevin Durant was trying to lead in that sense. So I think Steve Kerr had a pretty good accredited resume that he brought alongside this championship decade. I think Steve Kerr is a pretty good coach. I mean, like I said, it's hard to judge coaches in the modern day. I thought it was surprising when Mike Malone was fired as the Denver Nuggets head coach, but there's so many coaches that come and go. And probably the best coach, if you think about the best coaches in the league right now, you're probably thinking about Eric Spoelstra, at least in your top 5 options. He had, again, a similar sense to Steve Kerr. He had great rosters to work with when he took them to the championship. That Jimmy Butler-led team in 2020 wasn't necessarily a fantastic roster. I mean, Bam Adebayo was there. Caleb Martin or Cody Martin had a great year and a great playoff run to help them get to that championship, taking down Boston in the conference championship. Jimmy Butler, obviously the star of that team. It was really the only scoring option, it seemed like, when he was going during that playoff, not just playoff run, but especially that finals run against the Lakers. So Eric Spoelstra is another guy you can kind of elect and observe and say, okay, he's had a great career. He's had great rosters as well. I think he was a great coach there as well. I mean, I'm looking at great championship teams and I say there's no way the coach wasn't contributing a decent amount. And this is a discussion I've had on other podcasts as well, where what is the art of the head coach in the modern day, especially in baseball? What is the art of the manager? You have your GM above you. You have everybody else in the dugout feeding your ear. How much is the head coach or the manager in baseball actually contributing and building that lineup? A lot of people actually say that with how analytical baseball is and how many guys are feeding into his ear, he probably receives about 10 lineups for a game, and he thinks the best combination of those lineups is going to be the one that we ride with. Maybe he makes a lineup himself and he takes any tweaks that anybody else provides for him. You look at a guy like Carlos Mendoza for the Mets right now, for keeping it in New York terms. He said the other day, an accurate top 3 would probably consist of right now for this upcoming season, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Bo Bichette. It's a decent top 3. I mean, the Mets in the last couple of weeks have improved their roster generationally. Everybody was clowning on David Stearns about a month ago, but the status of the Mets has been up and down this whole offseason. Carlos Mendoza, how much is he actually doing to put that roster together? Obviously, it's about the culture as well. If you're a manager for a professional baseball team, a big insult that I think it was Joe Girardi took back when he was coaching the Yankees was that he was not about the culture of the team. When it became a young team and they were listening to different styles of music in the locker room, he was not so into that culture. Where do we draw the line with culture in the sports realm as a head coach? How involved with that culture do you have to be? Honestly, I don't give many damns how many guys are listening to the same music in the locker room. I don't think a coach really has to be involved with that realm. I don't care if he walks into the locker room and turns off the music so that he can make his speech. I mean, there's a level of culture that you have to have as a professional coach or even a collegiate coach. I don't think music really comes into play there. So I thought that report was kind of stupid back in the day when that was a big discussion. But head coaching, and this comes across NFL as well, because the NFL carousel of coaches has been kind of insane the last couple of weeks. You have guys moving like Sean McDermott, and I mentioned early in the show, Joe Brady takes up and steps up from the offense coordinator to head coach spot today, which is great for him. But Sean McDermott was not a guy that I expected to be moving in the last couple of weeks. I mean, there were a lot of coaches that could have been abandoned first. I don't think Sean McDermott was rightfully abandoned. He made the playoffs for the Buffalo Bills every season of his coaching career with Buffalo, other than Josh Allen's rookie season. There was only so much he can do with that young core, and Josh Allen playing his first season. I would arguably say that the look that Buffalo should have had was that Josh Allen might not be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I'm not saying Josh Allen isn't, but I would say that would have been my first look, putting it more on the star players that you have and maybe not getting enough wide receiver talent for Josh Allen than saying Sean McDermott is not the key here. But again, as the media, we don't know what goes on in the locker room. We don't know what type of culture Sean McDermott had. I mean, Josh Allen, who was run through by, I'm not even going to say run through, Patrick Mahomes took him down in multiple conference championships. Joe Burrow was your other biggest threat. So this season was obviously Josh Allen's best shot at a championship of his entire career, very likely, with just Bo Nix really being the only main threat to him. And apparently Drake May as well. I would not have expected that. Bo Nix conquers him in a 3-point game in overtime. Great game in the divisional round. But again, Sean McDermott wouldn't have been my first look after that game. I'm not going to lie. We cannot judge how good Sean McDermott is, because also in the football world, some offensive coordinators are calling the plays, some head coaches are calling the plays. So How much was Sean McDermott actually doing on the sideline during offensive drives? You have coaches like Sean McVay, who this week after the conference championship game of the NFC, he took a lot of accountability and he said, a little bit was on me. And then a divisional round the week before that, he said he was making comments in the presser saying some of the play calls on my end were just not good, and that he was blaming himself for nearly not getting past the Chicago Bears in that game. Puka Nacua had a great game. Stafford had some ups and downs in that Chicago game. They were kind of getting to him defensively. That's why that game was so close. But both guys, Stafford and McVay, had taken a little bit of accountability after the game. And that's why I don't think Sean McVay is going anywhere in Los Angeles anytime soon, because he's a great coach. Like that is pretty undoubtable, especially since he's calling the plays as well. But it's so hard to judge as an NFL fan who is a decent head coach, who is not. John Harbaugh now steps into the New York Giants coaching position. I'm just going over all these main aspects of the coaching world that have changed in the last couple of weeks since this is the first show on this channel. And John Harbaugh is supposed to be the piece that turns New York football around. The Jets don't seem like they're going anywhere. They tried Robert Saleh. They tried all these different options. They pull over Aaron Glenn from Detroit, and things did not change for them this season because it's more in the quarterback room. Brady Cook had some starts for the Jets season. They tried Justin Fields. They tried a bunch of different options, and things have not changed. So they're really going to have to make a big change offensively. That's the Jets situation. The Giants, they bring in John Harbaugh. Hopefully, Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo will be back shortly into the season, if not ready for week 1. Both of them seem to be on a pretty good track right now from the reports that I have seen. So you're looking at a team which has so much young talent offensively, and the defense was supposed to be actually the point of dominance in the last couple of seasons. They said, you know what, the Giants are actually a pretty good team defensively. They need to get the offense going. So now they have all these young stars to make this offense actually uptick a little bit. Now you have the head coach to do it as well. Then you bring in Denard Wilson from the Titans as well. Now you're going to fully embrace that defensive-minded team. So where is Jackson Dart going to take this team with his stars alongside him? I mean, I loved Tyron Tracy a couple of years ago too. I think he was a decent option when Scatterbo got injured this season. You have a great 1-2 punch if you use them correctly. It's all about how you're going to use your players, what kind of schemes you're going to put together as the coaching staff. But John Harbaugh is another topic where it was like not a guy I would have expected to move from Baltimore. Him and Mike Tomlin, the two longest tenured coaches with their respective teams, both in the same conference as well. They both get booted in the same season or part ways with the team, however you phrase it. John Harbaugh had another great career, and I mentioned that 2012 Super Bowl already that Joe Flacco went to. John Harbaugh was there. So two coaches who were doing great, but it's all about how you're viewing success as an NFL fan. Mike Tomlin was making the playoffs pretty much every year of his career with Pittsburgh. He was an above 500 team every year with Pittsburgh. That was what everybody knows from Mike Tomlin's career, was that he was always going above 500. He kept winning teams. But how are we valuing success if he and Sean McDermott are essentially in the same boat? They were making the playoffs virtually every year. They both had over 500 seasons pretty much every year because Sean McDermott was just about that other than that rookie season with Josh Allen. How have things fallen apart where both of these coaches get moved and these teams start looking for somebody new? I mean, it's nice that Buffalo ends up just pulling somebody already in their organization from the offense coordinator up to the head coach. But both of these guys were guys that I, as an NFL fan, did not see moving this season. I mean, it depends on how you're viewing it and what do you find success to be as an NFL fan. Falcons brought in Kevin Stefanski as well, a guy that kind of struggled with Cleveland. But again, that's a roster that he was given. Cleveland hasn't been great for quite some time now. Myles Garrett runs that defense. Defense looks great. But offensively, the Browns haven't been something sensational in a couple years. They had a decent playoff appearance a couple of years ago. They tried Deshaun Watson there. Browns have just been struggling on the offensive end for a couple of years now, and things aren't seeming to change. But Kevin Stefanski can turn around that Falcons team now. Falcons have been great. They upset the Bills early in the season. They had a couple of great upsets, also defeated the Rams late in the season. So that offense has been great. When Kyle Pitts gets going, Drake London has been one of the greatest receivers in the NFL this season, a very underrated part of NFL offenses. Nobody's looking towards Drake London. Number 5 has been great. Bijan Robinson, a top 3 running back in the NFL. Pretty much everybody knows that now. He's up there in the fantasy rankings as well. And that's still a 1-2 punch there with him and Tyler Algier. But Bijan just eats offensively, especially in the passing game as well. He's so underrated out of the backfield. And then the Falcons defense also got it going this year. Jesse Bates comes into Atlanta, spins around the secondary for Atlanta, and things were just great for Atlanta. At least in my opinion, I think that franchise has really been on the uptick. But yet they moved their head coach, and now they're going for Kevin Stefanski as well. I thought there was potential growing there, but we will see what comes for them. The Dolphins also switch things up, bring in, I believe, Jesse Mentor. They push away Mike McDaniel, who now heads over to the Chargers. And that's he was always an offensive minded guy. So good to see him as an offense coordinator there, where I think he can thrive a little bit more. But how are the Dolphins going to spin things around? I think they're going to have to change a little bit of their quarterback room. I think that they're not going to go back to Tua Tagovailoa. At least I'm imagining. And you have uh, not many options to turn to there. Quinn Ewers came around, tried it. I don't know if he's going to be so impressive in the NFL. He had a decent career at Texas ahead of Arch Manning, but he's just not a guy that has panned it out in the NFL thus far. And you have Fernando Mendoza heading over to the Raiders, first overall pick, very probable. And how is he going to turn that franchise around? I think it's going to be a stuttered first season or two. And then I think the Raiders actually have a chance of taking off if they actually want to bring in some talent. The reason I'm saying it's going to be a little bit of stuttering is because I think defensively they're also going to kind of fall down a little bit. I don't think Max Crosby, at least I'm not imagining he's going to stay around forever. I think he takes a lot of pride in the Raiders, and I think he's a guy that is a great clubhouse guy, but I can't see him staying around forever. I think he's eventually going to grow a little bit aggravated with it and get moving. So I think the Raiders are going to take a couple of years to get going. But that's why Drake May has been even more impressive, even though I don't have him as my MVP vote. And I think that was, yes, it was a team more impacted by the defense this year. The Patriots showed in the playoffs that they're one of the best defenses across the entire NFL. And they didn't showcase it too much early in the NFL season, but they truly are. And Drake May had one of the best second year seasons of any NFL player in history. I mean, Patrick Mahomes obviously had an iconic one. Lamar Jackson, great second year turnaround. But a 4-win Patriots team now becomes a Super Bowl candidate, tends all the way to the championship game. We'll see what happens. I personally am looking more towards the Seahawks right now, but I'll get into that next week, our Super Bowl picks. But Drake May has really done some incredible things at the helm. Yes, 86 yards in the conference championship game. Sure, it was in the snow. Yes, indeed. I think the defense is a little bit more to credit, but Drake May has been incredible, and I think it's great what they got out of him. Yes, Mike Vrabel also comes in, turns things around as a head coach of the New England Patriots. Good for him. I mean, Mike Vrabel is a Hall of Fame coach potential. And speaking of the Hall of Fame, I do want to touch upon the topic of Bill Belichick this week not being voted into the Hall of Fame, not surpassing the threshold to do so. I heard that he made a comment. He said to an assistant of his, "What more can you do to become a candidate for the Hall of Fame?" And I saw that the seventh ranked head coach in wins is in, but he is not at the second ranked all time in wins in professional football, but he is not making his way in there. So I don't know if they're expecting that he comes around to coach in the NFL again, or if everybody's really just looking at his scandals of Spygate, Deflategate. I mean, what is real, whatever. But I think it's probably more what they're discrediting on his Hall of Fame resume. That's been the problem that they're looking toward. So, I mean, who knows? The state of the Hall of Fame across sport, it's different for every sport. Some sports is a lot easier to get into. I don't know how you view coaching, though. I mean, some of these coaches who, like we just mentioned, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, they all look like incredible coaches. They've done some great things with their career. But if you've only gone to one Super Bowl, or you've had a stuttering in your career where you end up getting part ways with your team and you have nowhere to go after that, I don't know. I don't know if Mike Tomlin's just going to go into media now. Who knows what is next for Tomlin coming out of Pittsburgh and just scrambling for a new option. But really, one of the last topics I wanted to jump into here, staying with the NFL for a little while longer, was the recent news, at least a couple weeks ago, but this has become a common trend for NFL especially. So Oregon quarterback Dante Moore sticks with Oregon for another year, and he was a projected top 3 pick, possibly 2, for the New York Jets in this upcoming draft, right behind Fernando Mendoza. He makes the decision to stay at Oregon after Nebraska quarterback Dylan Raiola has already transferred to Oregon and was potentially going to be the starting quarterback. He was already in the top of the quarterback rankings for this upcoming year, leading Oregon somewhere, who has been a consistent playoff team the last couple of years. Dante Moore returns, has pretty much already been deemed that he's going to be the starting quarterback still. I don't think that Raiola is going anywhere. I think that he's more planning on just redshirting at this point and maybe taking some lessons from Dante Moore and examining a little bit from the sideline, maybe getting opportunities where they come. But that leads me into the topic of where is NIL becoming an issue in these professional sports, especially in the NFL. NIL, when it was first established, I myself viewed it as more of a concept allowing players to make money off of themselves in their own senses. If you want to do a commercial, profit from it. If you want to sign autographs, profit from it. A little bit of a Johnny Manziel um, kind of fixed right there. Allow guys like that to do what they got to do to finance themselves a little bit while they're in college and still have hopes and maybe continue in college if they need to without rushing themselves to the NFL in order to acquire financial benefits. That really hasn't been the case in what NIL has turned into, with these big schools pulling in big players with a chance to earn NIL money. That's been huge in college basketball too, with the unlimited transfer portal and how um, extensive that has become. The transfer portal has exploded in the last couple of years. That's a little bit different now as well. So the top picks that are now staying in college, like Dante Moore, are delaying professional careers while seeking more money to NIL. Not saying that is necessarily the main reason why he stayed. Maybe he didn't want to be a Jet. Maybe there was just uh, other reasons why he wanted to stay at Oregon and gain more. Maybe he wanted to play with his team a little bit longer. Maybe he said the job wasn't finished there at Oregon, haven't won yet. So maybe he wants to stay and keep pushing things. But he stays back. Now the Jets scramble as a second overall pick. Now they're going to think, are they going more defensively? Because I was just talking about how the Jets need to look for a quarterback probably because they've been just switching everything around this past season, trying multiple guys. Now they're staying there. And what is going to happen in that second overall pick? Are they going to move it? Are they going to try and go defensively with an edge rusher? Or are they going to try and push for a quarterback anyway? We'll see what happens for the Jets. But yeah, that's the status of NIL. And across college basketball, many coaches have talked about the issue, like John Calipari and Rick Pitino. They've been big pioneers in stating the issues of college basketball. Though they've made statements such as Rick Pitino saying that college basketball is at its peak right now. This is the best state college basketball has ever been in. And whether that's true or not, the NIL has really put this into a little bit of a turmoil, and players are pushing away from their team in order to acquire better financial benefits. I've seen guys like AJ Storr who have played for, not only did they play for 4 different teams in high school, they play for different teams every year in college. And that has spun the dynamic of college basketball down the road a little bit. So things are, it's kind of hard to make a locker room culture, as I discussed in the baseball world, when you have players like that competing financially and not wanting to build their culture and build relationships in the locker room because they already know that they're moving very soon enough. So that's been the problem with NIL in the last couple of years, and we'll see really what it comes to. I think they do need to do something about NIL, or at least in the college basketball world, maybe do something about the transfer portal in order to stop killing the relationships that are built in the dynamics in college basketball. But we'll see how they handle NIL in the future couple of seasons when they make these new rulings on it. So there's a couple of things that college basketball really needs to address in general, but I would say that the transfer portal, along with maybe the NCAA ruling on NIL in general, we'll see how they handle that in the future. But that's all going to be all for LaBella's Looks today. Thank you for staying along with me as I jumped across really all the major sports going on right now. Next week, we'll take a little bit of a bigger look at the Super Bowl outlook. Seahawks versus Patriots at the same time next week, 1 to 2 p.m. on WIUR Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been LaBella.